Welcome to Northern Lullabies. Cuddle up, get comfortable, and let the worries of today and tomorrow fade away. Tonight, we'll journey back to Westeros to hear the story of one of its most cunning players. A man who rose from nothing, climbed higher than anyone ever expected, and in the end, lost everything. This is the rise and fall of Littlefinger. He was no warrior, no great lord, born in the poorest corner of the realm, mocked with a cruel name. And yet, Baelish, Littlefinger, outplayed kings and queens, ignited wars, and nearly seized the realm for himself. But in the end, the game he mastered turned against him. This is the rise and fall of Littlefinger. Chapter 1. The Boy from the Fingers. The Fingers, a harsh, rocky coastline jutting into the narrow sea. Windswept, isolated, poor. This was where Baelish was born, into a minor house that held no real power, no fortune, no name worth remembering. To the great families of Westeros, the Baelishes were insignificant, forgettable. Yet even as a boy, Petter refused to accept that fate. Fostered at Riverrun among the noble Tullys, he studied the ways of lords and ladies. He laughed louder, spoke sharper, tried harder, always desperate to be noticed. And notice him they did, for Petter fell in love, not with power, not yet, but with Catelyn Tully. His love was bold, reckless, foolish. So foolish that when she was promised to Brandon Stark, he challenged him to a duel. Steel rang against steel for only a moment. Brandon struck him down with ease, nearly killing him. Petter lay bleeding, broken, humiliated. He had no sword hand, no strength, no chance. Only scars. But humiliation became fuel. That day, Baelish swore he would never be powerless again. If he could not win with a sword, he would win with his mind. Chapter 2. Master of Coin, Master of Secrets. Years later, the boy who had been mocked as Littlefinger had remade himself. He had clawed his way to the royal court at King's Landing, a place where ambition could flourish and where betrayal could be deadly. As Master of Coin, Petter turned the kingdom's debts into his personal weapon. While the realm drowned in loans to the Iron Bank and the Lannisters, Petter thrived. He lent gold, moved money, and ensured that everyone owed him something. But coin was only the surface of his power. His true strength lay in whispers. He flattered the vain, bribed the desperate, seduced the lonely. Petter made friends of enemies and enemies of friends, and none of them ever saw his hand guiding the board. When King Robert Baratheon died, Petter acted. Ned Stark, the honorable hand of the king, came to him for help. And Petter swore loyalty, swore he would stand by him, swore he would protect him. And then, in the throne room, Petter pressed a dagger to N's throat and whispered, "I did warn you not to trust me." In that moment, chaos consumed the realm. And for Littlefinger, chaos was never a pit, it was a ladder. Chapter 3. The Puppeteer of Thrones. As the War of the Five Kings raged, lords and kings bled on the battlefield. But Littlefinger fought a different war. He whispered into the ear of Lysa Arryn, the unstable lady of the Vale, convincing her to murder her husband, John Arryn, the Hand of the King, whose death began it all. Few knew the truth, but Petter did. Petter had started the game long before anyone else knew they were playing. He fanned the flames of suspicion, nudged enemies into war, and stood back as Westeros devoured itself. At Joffrey's wedding, as the boy king choked on poisoned wine, chaos erupted once more. And who stood at the center of it? Petter Baelish. He had orchestrated the assassination with Olenna Tyrell, framing Tyrion Lannister and casting suspicion on Sansa Stark. While the great houses fought, Littlefinger slipped away with Sansa, the key to the north, the heir to Winterfell. Every move, every betrayal, every whispered word had brought him closer to his dream. Chapter 4. Lord Protector of the Vale. In the high halls of the Eyrie, Petter made his boldest move. He wed Lysa Arryn, the woman who adored him, the woman he had manipulated for years. And once she had served her purpose, he kissed her and sent her screaming through the moon door. The Vale was his, its armies, its castles, its young, fragile lord Robin Arryn, who bent to his every command. Now he was no longer just Petter Baelish. He was the Lord Protector of the Vale. But more importantly, he had Sansa Stark under his protection. In her, he saw not just a girl, but the future of Winterfell, and perhaps the Seven Kingdoms. He whispered to her, guided her, shaped her. He dreamed of ruling by her side, of taking everything he had been denied as a boy. The boy from the Fingers now commanded lords, armies, and castles. The game was his to win. Chapter 5. The Fall of Littlefinger. But ambition breeds blindness. Petter believed Sansa was still his pawn, that she would always need his protection, his lessons, his lies. But Sansa was no longer a frightened child. She had grown strong, patient, cunning. She had learned from the very man who thought he controlled her. When Arya returned to Winterfell, Petter saw danger. Two Stark sisters, sharp, unpredictable, dangerous. He believed he could divide them. He whispered poison into Sansa's ear, trying to set her against her sister. But this time, his whispers fell flat. The trap he thought he was weaving around Sansa was, in truth, being woven around him. In the great hall of Winterfell, before the banners of House Stark, Sansa's voice rang out. She listed his crimes, his betrayal of End, his murder of Lysa, his endless treachery. Petter begged, pleaded, denied. The great manipulator reduced to panic. But there was no escape. Arya's blade cut his throat, and the man who had once outplayed kings died in silence on the cold stone floor. Epilogue. The man who climbed the ladder. Petter Baelish rose higher than anyone ever expected. A boy from the Fingers, mocked and humiliated, who came within reach of ruling the realm. He outwitted kings, orchestrated wars, and nearly won the Game of Thrones. But chaos, his greatest weapon, was also his undoing. For all his brilliance, he never understood the power of loyalty, of love, of family. And in the end, the ladder he climbed so brilliantly collapsed beneath him.